This is Jean Amore with More Than Sports. I am here with former linebacker for the Oregon State Beavers and the Chargers and Arena League. And you are currently a college official and the uniform inspector for the NFL, which I'm a little curious to hear about. So, Kelron Sykes, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. My pleasure. I'm really excited to hear about your story and how you got into certain things that you're doing. And we can't forget, you're an assistant principal as well.
That's probably the key out of the three. The assistant principal role is probably the biggest, most important role that I'm playing right now. But yes, I am.
Busy. You're a little busy.
A little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So you are in Arizona actually right now.
Correct.
But you grew up in California. So talk to me a little bit about what it was like growing up. Where did you grow up in California? What was your childhood like there?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's typically the same answer you see most, or you hear from most inner city kiddos. Born and raised in LA from a single parent. Mom had it was four of us. Raised right outside of Watts, Anthony Park area in Los Angeles. Growing up, it was good. I didn't have any of the privileges to having a two-parent household, as a lot of kids have. But unfortunately, also was the fact that, we didn't get exposed to later on, and particularly travel and being outside the realm of your surroundings until later on as well either. But the benefits was household was loving. Mom was great. She was grounded in terms of her structural. She was mom. She had to be mom one day. Sometimes she had to be dad. Renee did a great job with us, and we owe her for our success, and just in terms of the Sykes household, the family. But yeah, gang infested.
Wow.
Drive-by shootings. You name it, it happened.
Wow.
Had a lot of prayer warriors that kept us shielded, and we walked out of there unscathed, and went on to Oregon State, and obviously we come back home all the time as much as possible, but nevertheless, Athens was home.
Wow. So when did you start playing football?
My mom put a football in my hand at an early age. I'm going to say about 7 to 8 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, she put a football in my hand, and back then in the 80s, there really wasn't a such thing as flag football. Yeah, you had to put a helmet on, or go do something else, or go dribble basketball. And if you had a baseball mitt or bat, maybe you get on the diamond and do that. But my preference was obviously football, basketball. She started us out early. Again, the more active you are in terms of the development of a child, and I'm saying this from a 46-year-old male perspective, the more opportunity you have now at an early age, it helps you become a better individual, just in terms of a team player perspective, not only for work-related issues to home-related issues to effective communication. The totality of what it does helps mold you as an individual. So I'm glad she did that.
And do you feel like, because you were raised in the inner city, that playing football helped kind of keep you out of trouble?
I'm going to say yes and no. I'm going to say yes. I was pretty good growing up. So all the gang members knew that, and all the local people knew that. So if I wanted to, for example, go outside at 9, 10 o'clock at night just to be nosy, I was told I need to take my little blah, 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 blah back in the house. And, during the 80s, you did what the big homie told you to do. There was no talking back. So that's what I did. And after a while, it just became just a habitual habit to where, okay, time management, be in the house, be back in the house. I had to go back in the house. And it obviously, it surfaced to the point where here I am.
Well, and you said that you had 3 other siblings.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Where do you fall in that?
I'm the second youngest. Kelron Sykes, the more successful one out of the group of us. That played at Colorado with the Broncos. He's the youngest.
Okay. So like I said in the intro, you went to Oregon State. So how did that all come about? California kid coming to Corvallis.
Well, academically, I was marginal. I was a 2.5, 2.7 kid. So you right then and there, you cross out Stanford.
Mm-hmm.
Cal may have brought you in as an exception in terms of recruiting. That's another conversation. Recruiting for another time. So it boiled down to Oregon State. It boiled down to Missouri and Washington. Washington was really packed at the linebacker position.
Mm-hmm.
But I did love my recruiting trip up there. Ron Miles, who recruited me at the time, who still I'm close friends with now, he's a tremendous man. Missouri, I just didn't know they were in the Big Eight at the time, the Big Eight conference, which I'm pretty sure a lot of your viewers don't know what that is, or the younger viewers. They did it. Missouri was nice, loved the campus, but Jerry Pettibone and Oregon State Beavers. One, I love the colors for one. Two, it gave me an opportunity just to be a little playing the Pac-12, or excuse me, the Pac-10 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I had an opportunity to come in and play right away.
Okay.
So, people had this persona with us back in the day in the 80s and 90s about Oregon State. Oregon State has great athletes.
Mm-hmm.
The problem was, and I'll go on a limb and say this, the problem was what we faced from a team perspective is the offense that we ran. It was outdated, wishbone. Mm-hmm. We so surpassed that mode of offense, and we were still stuck in neutral. Granted, the great athletes that we had on the team, we were just stuck, first down, second down, third down, and punt. Then you're back on the field on the defense. First down, second down, punt, third down rather than punt, and you're right back on the field. So
mm-hmm.
If we'd have caught up back then with the scheme, offensive schemes,
mm-hmm.
With the quote unquote powerhouse schools,
mm-hmm.
Oregon State would be what they're doing now.
Right. What was your biggest win when you were there?
Beating you guys. Civil War. Oregon. That's always it's always a great pleasure when you play a rival. It's
mm-hmm.
For the record, it's more so for the fans. They
mm-hmm.
get into the verbal exchanges and all the hatred stuff. I mean, most of us to this day, we see each other in LA or Arizona, Texas, and we speak, we break bread.
Mm-hmm.
We're just there to play and entertain. There's really no hatred. It's hatred for 2 hours or 3 hours, obviously. On the
right.
field. But beyond that, we all fellas. We all,
Well, and I think, the fans definitely make it a true rivalry.
And it's intriguing up there.
It's the Civil War.
It's the Civil War, and it's no longer called the Civil War. I said that a couple of weeks ago, and somebody looked at me and said, "You don't know that's not the Civil War anymore. You can't say that." I said, "All right, buddy."
I don't even know what I know. See, I think that's really what we still call it down here too. So, those that don't know, I live in Eugene. I'm a huge Duck fan. And so, this is kind of fun, interviewing a rival Oregon State Beaver. But you did say earlier when we were talking a couple days ago about that you played against some of the Ducks.
Yes.
In high school, like, Isaac and people like that. So what was that like going to college and playing against them in college?
Well, see, I ran into Isaac and Eugene actually, the week after I came back from my recruiting trip. And he said, "Why do you not get what's wrong with us?" I said, "I don't know. I think I'm going to Oregon State." He said, "Man, you're gonna lose for the next 4 years." They suck. They're sorry. Yada 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 yada. But nevertheless, I graduated. Mm-hmm. Things turned out, and it's turned out for the majority of us. We do have a high percentage of graduates among student athletes at Oregon State, so that's something to be proud of. And Oregon does too. U of O does too. Mm-hmm. I think we're just two programs on the far left coast that because of East Coast time differences, it's really difficult to gauge what goes on. Now, obviously, you guys are heading to the Big Ten, and we're the Pac-2 for right now. The dynamics have changed. Obviously, finances have changed. It's college football has changed. Recruiting has changed. It's a perspective of, for kiddos now, what can you guys do for me?
Right.
If you can't do for me, then I'm gonna leave.
Absolutely.
So I guess that's the downfall of what we see now in collegiate sports. But it's not a better time to be a student athlete.
Right. Well, and what is your take, being a student athlete? Because I've talked to quite a few about this, and they all kind of say the same thing. But what is your view on the NIL and the transfer portal?
I don't mind it. I think you should be given. I think you should be given a 2 to 3 transfer policy. So, for example, if I wanted to transfer from Oregon State to Missouri, and I just didn't like the weather, or I'm homesick, and I wanted to leave again, I wanted to go, I don't know, take my talents to Michigan, and it just didn't work, and then I wanted to take my talents, to USC, and that's it. Now we're fishing. We're fishing, which is what people really don't understand is really messing up the high school pool.
Yes.
Of student athletes, because most colleges are going to the transfer portal first, and we can secure this person for the next 2 years or 3 years or whatever, how much eligibility they have left. At least we're taking a chance on somebody that's put on a collegiate helmet, that's practiced, that knows the speed, that knows the tempo, that knows how to practice, understands terminology, and we don't necessarily have to teach or implement, a scheme to this individual. So it's taking away the learning method, the learning curve of how to be a student athlete. But like I said, two transfers, that should be enough. I do believe players should be compensated, for their time. As much money as these universities and the conferences are bringing in, yeah, a couple of racks a month is chump change.
Right, exactly. Well, and so, let's talk about this, because your daughter is going to be playing D1 softball next year. So, what advice have you given her, really about that stuff, the NIL, the transfer portal, and just being a student athlete since you've been there? What's been your advice to her?
I can't tell her anything academically because she's a 4.7 student. So I'm not even allowed in conversations when it comes to academics with her. But from an athletic standpoint, in terms of travel, in terms of time management, in terms of scheduling things around practices, in terms of your, the physical commitment that you're going to make and you're going to transition into, we have daily conversations about that. I have an older niece who played basketball at Sacred Heart 5 years ago. So we're constantly doing a triangle effect on her as well, just in terms of keeping her abreast about what the expectations are, the dorm life. This is, you're going to be traveling, and you may not be flying first class or being on a plane. You may be on a bus. In particular, where you're located, which is in Louisiana. That's a 3-hour drive to get to Texas Southern. So I'm preparing her, but at the same time, I don't want to overwhelm her with too much information, because she hasn't learned. Because we all obviously it's a process of development. So, but I think she's prepared. I'm looking forward to seeing her play next year. It's gonna be tough without her in the house, but
yep, it's definitely a transition.
Yes.
When they leave the house, that's for sure. Well, and I think that's good. I think that's very important that she knows, though, that you've been there. You understand what she's about to go through. So if she has any questions, she knows that she can come to you. So, I think that's kind of one of the most important things.
I think the main thing I've been harping on lately is the tempo. You got to play faster. You got to play faster. You got to play faster. You got to recognize pitches faster, because what you're seeing now here in Arizona. I mean, softball in Arizona is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Probably second or third fiddle to maybe, Texas and California, possibly Florida. But, you're seeing 61-mile-an-hour fastballs, which is okay. But now on the collegiate level, you're going to ramp that up to 68, 69 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So just to gain speed, playing speed. Obviously, she's developed herself academically, but and off the field, let's make smart decisions in terms of what we're doing with our time on our spare time. So
right. I think that's important too, because you can get caught up in the college life and what all that has to offer. So, again, I think that that's extremely important, not just on the field, but off the field. How are you going to be? And again, having kind of you as that sounding board, and being able to give her that advice that other people may not be able to, that haven't been a student athlete, and managing your time and schoolwork and practice. And, it's a big commitment. So,
yes. And I think that's the part where she doesn't realize how much of a sacrifice it's going to take for her to be successful. Because your Com 111 class may not be till 1:00, which is 2 hours before practice. So that means you got to get your butt to school and then mosey on over to get to practice on time.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. So you went on to play with the Chargers. Is that correct?
Cup of coffee.
Okay. And then you played arena.
Yes.
How long did you play arena for?
Oh, I was in the arena league, 6 years?
Wow.
Yeah, okay. 6 years, 6 long years, yeah.
Wow.
Interesting league, though. It's an interesting league.
Yeah.
In the early 2000s. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. What was the biggest difference, would you say, between that and regular, just football?
Well, obviously, it's a condensed field. The speed is warp speed, because you got guys that are 285, 90 pounds that are moving. And that was a big adjustment. Particularly as a pass rusher, you have time to kind of develop your move, where in arena league, there's one move. If it doesn't work, then what are we going to do? Because the ball is out of the quarterback's hands so fast in the arena league. So, but it's a great. It was a great game. I believe they're coming back. They're coming back, but it was a great game. Great opportunity for guys just to continue their playing careers.
Right.
Obviously it's not NFL money, but it was enough money to where you would smile when you got your paycheck.
Yeah.
And the guys established themselves. A lot of arena guys, for example, a good friend of mine, Hunky Cooper, he's on the UNLV staff. There's a lot of guys that are coaching that are in collegiate ranks, high school ranks, professional ranks. Chris Jackson is down there at the University of Texas. My close friend of mine, who I played with in LA, he's a receiver coach. So there are so many guys that are broadening out the horizon from the arena league, and it was just a stepping board, as our coach used to say. Use this as a stepping board to get to where you want. And I've been fortunate enough to utilize that.
That's great. Well, yeah. And I think that, for the love of the game, to continue playing, you're still getting paid, but
yeah, Gina, them checks wasn't bad now. Those checks was all right. Those checks were all right in the arena league. You were all right.
It's for the love of the game too. That's, it's not, like you said, it's not NFL money. I mean, it's still money and it's still good, but, I think that's what I love, is that you can continue playing.
Yeah. But you also got to take in consideration, you from the transition from collegiate to professional, you're dealing with grown men that has mortgages and girlfriends and other responsibilities. So it's taken more seriously in terms of, I need to play, I need to be successful at what I do. So I saw the ups and downs of being a professional athlete from a financial perspective, to where guys just, obviously weren't making the best financial decisions with their finances. If anything, we should have more education in money management, time management, because again, after a certain age, you start bringing in kids yourself, and you have a wife, and a couple of girlfriends, and in Atlanta or whatever, and it's hard to manage that when you so.
That sounds about right. And so, how was the transition after football? I think sometimes your identity gets so wrapped up in the sport that you play.
Yeah.
That's your identity, especially when you've played it for so long. So how was that transition for you after football was over? I mean, you're still involved, and we'll talk about that, but your playing days, how was that transition?
It was difficult because I didn't know what to do. I said, okay, having a bachelor's degree is like having a high school diploma now.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has it. So what's going to differentiate me from anybody else at this moment? So I had a conversation with my mom. She's been in education for 20, 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
She said, Kelron, you got to go back and get your master's degree at some point. Mm-hmm. Well, as soon as we finished that conversation, I had an opportunity to go to the Cleveland Browns in the player personnel department. Mm-hmm. So I did some internships with some NFL teams, luckily. Mm-hmm. And when I say luckily, that was the grace of God that, I had an opportunity to go to Jacksonville, Cleveland, St. Louis Rams, then St. Louis Rams. Mm-hmm. And it just springboard into opportunities because you're networking, you're around people who can pick up the phone and vouch the character that you have, the work habits, work ethic that you have. Mm-hmm. And but at the same time, you still want to establish yourself in the workplace, and you're still trying to find yourself, as a 25, 26-year-old or 28-year-old, in my case at the time, mm-hmm. young man who's never had a job.
Yeah.
Get up and do what?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm used to this routine.
Right.
This is what I've done over the X amount of years, and now I gotta finagle, my method of living, how I function. So mm-hmm. that was difficult, but again, you surround yourself with people, and you start to notice trends and habits of the mature players or the mature people. Mm-hmm. And you study how they go about. Okay, he's always 30 minutes early. Okay, he's always early. Okay, he's always early. Okay, he's never late. He communicates well. He's doing this, he's doing that. So, and I just kind of took those tools and ran with it.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So you are now a college official. Yes. And so talk to me a little bit about that and how you got started in that, how long you've been doing it.
It's interesting. So what was it? 2007. When was I in Jacksonville? 2008, I was in Jacksonville with the Jags. And one of the scouts said, Sykes, you need to transition to be a stripes. You're good. Because I would talk to myself when you're evaluating players. I would talk to myself and to my mic so I can make sure my reports were right when we did our presentations to our GM at the time. So, but I guess he said I made some kind of distinctions in terms of rule regulations. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, that's interesting. Didn't follow through with it. Didn't have any intentions of being an official. You fast forward, 4 years ago, I said, what the hell? Let me try this out. So made a phone call to the local AIA authority here in Arizona. They told me to come on to some meetings. I did. I was given my first game, a JV game. Interesting. I had 2 flags on my hip pocket. You only need one. I got laughed at. I'm still, people who know that story still laugh at me to this day. And then after that, it just, being an official, in particular as an umpire in an 8-man crew, it's like playing the position all over again. You're in the middle of all the action. Obviously, you're from a mechanic standpoint, I'm responsible for the guard, center guard, and triangle that to the quarterback. But it was just a natural gravitation. It became, I wouldn't say easier, but the game started to slow down in terms of me, enforcing infractions, understanding the difference between a grab and a hold and a takedown.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, is this a chop block here? And I got better. Started surrounding myself with older officials. Um, and then I got invited to the Pac-12 ODP official
Mm-hmm.
development program, and
Mm-hmm.
it just springboard from there. Here I am. I think I know where I'm going to be. Hopefully this fall, but we'll wait till I get that phone call.
Yes. Well, and so you are now a uniform inspector as well.
Job 3.
For the NFL. So how did that come about? And what exactly does a uniform, I'm self-explanatory, but what does exactly a uniform inspector do?
Pretty much we're just monitoring the uniforms of the players, pregame, first quarter action, and all the way up to halftime. In a nutshell, hey, I give you the easiest way to understand this. Every locker room has a mannequin, an 8-foot mannequin that's dressed in its attire, football attire. And it stands like this and it says, hey, this is what I look like before entering the field. Mm-hmm. So if your socks don't look like that, there's an eye color visor that you have on. If you're showing any knees, mm-hmm. I'll give you a warning first, in particular during pregame, because everybody, everybody does their own social media aspect on pregame. So I really don't bother the players, but just, hey, be heads up, your socks are down. Mm-hmm. Hey, look at your shoes. Those shoes weren't authorized. Or, hey, that visor is not authorized. And again, mm-hmm. most of the players do that for marketing and do their whole social media aspect. Completely get it. Mm-hmm. But upon the kickoff or before the television lights come on, we don't want to display anything that's not NFL approved.
Right. Okay.
Can't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Can't happen. We don't want any markings or any symbols or emblems or anything of the nature that's not approved by the NFL. Mm-hmm. The players know they have until Tuesday to submit any requests for shoes or any alterations of anything, which mm-hmm. most of the time is going to be denied anyway. The shoes maybe not, but anything else is probably going to be denied. Mm-hmm. And then that communication is trickled down to us uniform inspectors. And before we take the field, we meet and discuss things and just go around just making sure all the players are in compliance. I got lucky getting that job, honestly. Mm-hmm. It's one of those gigs where once you get in, you should never leave.
Right.
Never leave.
And how exactly did you get that? Like how does one become a uniform inspector?
So the guy who I replaced, Irv Smith, by the way, former San Francisco 49er great. Mm-hmm. I knew he was branching off. He goes, Sykes, man, I'll give you this guy's number. You should think about doing this. And I end up calling. And of course, you're not going to get a phone call back. So I send an email, got the email, sent an email. Then I sent another email. Then I sent another email. So finally, I got a response, and I got an opportunity to shadow. Mm. And great experience, kind of learning the tricks and the aspects of how to properly conduct yourself on the sideline. Mm-hmm. And the next year, this is year 7, so I've been lucky.
That's great. So what's been the biggest, I know we talked about this and you don't actually give out the fines, but what's been the biggest fine or the biggest, egregious thing that somebody has tried to pass off?
Ooh, there's rumblings. A particular player on I'm just going to say the NFC, he was fined north of 35 grand.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can you say for what?
Can't say for what, but there again, he was fined for at least 35 grand. Now, that right there would hurt the average person. Mm-hmm. But if I said the name, you'd be like, oh well,
right?
Chump change, yeah.
So
that's In-N-Out burger money.
Are there any rules that have to do with the uniforms that players get fined for that you don't think should be a fine?
I think the visor aspect of it probably is going to get retweaked. There's a certain visor that's allowed by the rules committee, but because certain places, for example, Arizona, where the roof is open 95.5% of the time, it's a heavy glare, and a lot of receivers, from what I understand, prefer the darker visors, just so it can block the reflections and whatnot. So if there's anything, I would say the visors.
So how are the visors now? Like, what's the rule on the visors?
They have to be not highly. It's better for me to show you an example, and I wish I had my template up. They can't be as dark as when I say like a computer monitor. Has to be less shaded. Can't be neon colors. So anything distracting that can be disconcerting. So
what is the biggest thing that people are fined for? Like, seems to be the common fine? Their socks, their shoes, like what's
at least for me, it's always going to be the socks and the knees. Like, dude, do something with your knees. Like, I understand you don't wear knee pads, which is fine, but at least pull your socks up to where you can at least try to act like you're manipulating the visual aspect of things. But for the most part, it's always going to be socks. Guys don't want to comply with the socks at all.
Like low, or
it's low. Yeah. Not even some people. Well, not some. One or two people don't wear socks.
Oh my gosh!
You wear the little toe. The toe strips, whatever they're called, that go above your toe, that go halfway on your foot.
Oh, I wouldn't think that'd be comfortable.
Hey, it's a new generation of athletes.
I guess so. So who would you say has had the biggest influence on your life?
Obviously my mom, relatives Paul and Ricky, who played a big role in my development as a young man, and my brother-in-law Daryl. They've been huge factors in terms of developing me into a young man. And obviously, I would say Michael Gray at Oregon State, our D-line coach, he's been tremendous. As you get older, you tend to climb that tree of success. You have a lot of people that influence you. That's gonna break you off nuggets in terms of information and what to do and how to go about things. And you take those pieces and you kind of mold it. You continue to mold, and obviously, I wish I had the same maturity now as back when I was 25, 26. I'd be a millionaire. But nevertheless, again, I love seeking knowledge from folks. It's funny, I just finished coming back from the Tom Beard officiating clinic in Baltimore last week. And, all the heavyweights are there. And if they know you by your first name, you're doing a good job. Or you've done something to catch their eye. And I just like the ear hustle in terms of mechanical work, in terms of how can you become better at dead ball officiating, or, hey, what is my visual aspect, on a free kick? Or, hey, should I turn at a 45-degree angle or 90-degree angle, opposite side? So it's just things like that you pick up from folks that have a solid background that you can take and develop your own strategies and become a better official, a better person.
Right. Okay. So what adversity have you had to face in your life, and what did it teach you?
Ooh, adversity. That's every day. Every day. You know what? Knock on wood. We lost our grandmother in college. And the family didn't recover from it. She was the rock. She was the person. She was the big dog. And we didn't heal from it. We didn't know how to heal.
Right.
We weren't taught to heal. and it affects us to this day, at least me, at least. And I'm just now starting to able to talk. I'm like, dang, Miss Cat. She was the first person that came to my first college game. Was here at Arizona State.
Oh, wow.
Played on a Saturday. She arrived here on a Thursday. So she beat me here.
She was anxious.
No, she beat me here, and she was a huge role. She still plays a huge role in what we do because she was a strong woman, and her bloodline obviously trickled down to us, her grandkids, and her daughter, my mom, and we've been lucky from that aspect in terms of having seeing somebody like that. I just wish she was around, because as a 46-year-old man, there's still some things that questions that I don't have an answer to. And that sometimes is a man that's with the ego and pride, or a person with ego and pride, and you don't want to, quote unquote, put your information out there in the streets. I knew she was that one person that I can rap to, and everything would be, I would get the right answer.
Yeah.
May not have been the one that I liked, but I was going to get the right answer.
Right. Yep. That's important to have people like that in your life that will kind of tell you how it is. And
absolutely.
What did you learn from that experience of losing her? Like, what has that taught you in your life?
Dang, losing somebody is tough, especially somebody of that magnitude, because it just wasn't myself she touched. She was my, my brothers, my first cousin. It was the fortitude of the family. Just, she was rock.
Yeah.
And those who have strong grandparents in their lives that are listening, you understand what I mean. She was the one. And she taught me to be strong though. Having a daughter, it was more so of, okay, I have to have two sides. I have to be dad and be firm, but I also have to sit down and hug my daughter, and while we're watching a movie or eating, give her a kiss and let her know I love her. Be embracive to her, just in terms of her, because she's maturing as a young lady, and her her emotions are sky high, depending on the day and time. So that part I had to adjust to as a father.
Right.
So it taught me patience. It's teaching me patience. Yeah.
They do that. Girls are. I have a daughter. I've been there. So, yeah, I'll pray for you. What is the biggest piece of advice that you can give people that are watching?
Keep working. Keep your head down and work. Keep chopping wood. David Coleman, which was a Pac-12 officiating supervisor, he would always tell me, actually, he just told me this last week in Baltimore, just keep chopping wood. Just keep going. Keep going. Just continue to chop, continue to work, ask questions, grow. Be adventurous, be willing to accept information that may not be suitable for you at the time. But continue to chop wood.
That's good. Okay, so before we go, I want to hear one story about your officiating time. We kind of talked a little bit about one before we went live. So I want you to tell that story.
Yeah, interesting. So obviously I'm an umpire in eight-man mechanics. So I'm on the defensive side, and I noticed the offense. I'm not going to say teams. I saw the offense come out in 2x2 set, but they were narrow 2x2. So I said, okay, that tells me one thing as an umpire. Once I go through my mechanic countdown, okay, hey, we got 11. I get a thumbs up. I glance out to kind of locate where the receivers are. And then I'll kind of look to the side real quick to see, hey, are they in man? Are they in zone? Just kind of get a basis for what to expect. Well, I noticed that they were in man-to-man, zero, no help over the tops. I said, okay, something is coming this way. So typically as an umpire, you want to line up, depending on who your supervisor is. I line up at about 7.5, 8 yards in depth, and you're stationary. and I seen the receiver coming at me. I said, okay, he's coming, so let me take a step up. I said, no, I'm all right. Lo and behold, he hit my shoulder, and it was, I said, all right. I didn't fall. He stumbled, messed up his route, which was my fault because they were trying to use me as a pick.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the play, I go, hey, you all right, dude? He said, yeah, you used to play, huh? I said, yeah. So I can tell you work out. But that night, though, and of course I had to play the role. I said, I can't show weakness in this matter. But I hurt my leg. I'm like, man, I can't walk around limping. So, but that night when I got back to the hotel on my way back to Arizona, I was sore. Oh yeah, that was
feels a little different when you're
a little different
bit
from
older.
1920 to 46. That's a huge difference.
Well, Kelron, thank you again so much for being on the show. I so appreciate it. I look forward to hearing more about where you're going to be at next year. And,
yes.
We'll have to do this again sometime and hear some more stories.
Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Again, this is Gina Moore with More Than Sports. Thanks for watching.